It's a high chaos ball, a wobbler. Oh, Reynolds, favoured by the bounce. He's going to turn it round the body, and he's got enough on it.
Yes, welcome to Before the Bounce. So we've been away for a couple of weeks to have a little break, but we're back fresh and ready to go. So, trade talk suggests many will walk. Of course, it is that time of the year. Has the premiership door been smashed open by the Lions? We'll talk about that in a minute. Has the Bombers coaching group been any good since Hurdy left them? Well, we'll find out from the expert in a minute. Will Cloco be at Hawthorn next year? The SANFL, of course, is hotting up, not to mention the Southern Footy League and footy all across the state. As I welcome Magarey medalist, super player Greg Anderson. Ando, how are you?
Oh, very well. I'm fresh like you. Had a couple of weeks off and feeling pretty good about myself. And we've got plenty to talk about.
Wow, there is plenty to talk about.
Because I want to just ask you, just quickly, now, footy's changed so much in my view when it comes to the AFL, and we're hearing about 11 players moving on from say North Melbourne. In your last couple of weeks, you're playing for North Melbourne, and you're knowing you're playing against Geelong or an Essendon or a Western Bulldogs, and their recruiting guys are there. Are you actually playing for your teammates in your club, or are you trying to impress to try to get picked up? Because that's probably the best thing for my football in the future.
It's a really good question. I mean, you'd want to hope that the quality of player is doing the best thing for his club, because that's the one that's
your teammates.
Now, there was a player that went to Carlton who played for Port Adelaide. I won't mention his name, Nick something.
Right, okay.
During the game, one of the players actually from the opposition gave him a fairly rough tackle, and down he went. He said, "Ease up on that. I'll be playing for you next year." As it turned out, he didn't, of course, but... I don't think Mark Williams at the time thought he was going to get the trade that he wanted, and pretty much made sure he didn't, and deservedly so. I reckon you've got to go and play your best footy. Yeah. The only way you play your best footy is to fit in with what the team wants. You're still trying to play
your best footy,
but you've got to fit in with what the team wants. You can't go off individually.
But footy's changed so much, though. It's self-preservation.
Oh yeah, it's got like the American sports.
They're happy to move you on pretty quickly. Let me tell you. I mean, North Melbourne's just gone bang. 11 have gone. Whether you're a coach or a player. It's I
reckon what happens, Anno, is you probably come into the game with a little bit different attitude in that I need to play really well today. So yeah, perhaps more than normal because you're going possible contract from another club on the end of this, as opposed to I'm comfortable, I just need to play well. Yeah. So I reckon the adrenaline's going a bit more on I need to look pretty good at this one.
Space up in front of that centre half forward so he can't run into there smoothly, or do I go front and square instead to make sure I get the ball? Just the little things like that.
Do you pad your stats?
That's it, man.
I don't know, what would you do? Mate, you're the player. What have you done?
I'm not going to ask my best interest. I can't even ask you.
It's probably more interested in the win, so I can't do it. Hey, let's talk about Essendon, because you had some time there, mate. The coaching is a bit weird for the Essendon supporters. I've spoken to a couple sitting on the outside, mate. They're saying Woosher and Truck, they're sitting away from each other on game day, so it doesn't look like they're kind of working together. The game plan doesn't seem to be getting modified the way it is. It's always a difficult... I mean, we saw it with Malthouse and Buckley, and we've seen it with other coaches. Probably the one I still think that worked best was Parkin and Britton when they did it. That worked beautifully. And I reckon there's an ego that gets involved.
I think Bruce and Goodwin done a pretty good job.
That was a pretty solid one. Yep.
I just don't know how Rutts and Worsford have worked. I don't think they've worked well together at all.
It just doesn't look like it from the outside, does it?
I do.
It may have not in the inner sanctum, and the results suggest that it hasn't.
I think Bush has actually said, here you go. Yep. I'm the head coach, but I'm really giving it to you. Yep. And it's just like he hasn't grabbed it. He goes, okay, well, I need to grab it. And it's just like, actually, you're actually going to be coaching now. You're going to be the senior coach. And I think you're supposed to do a bit more and get a bit more front of the actual football club, and he hasn't.
All right, let me ask you this then. Again, is that confusing for the players? Because as a player, am I listening to Woosher or am I listening to Rutten? If they're both saying something a little bit different, I go, well, Woosher's coaching me this year, but I need to play well because I've got Ruts next year. So it can be really uncomfortable unless the lines are crystal clear right from the start.
Look, I think Paul Roos certainly made the line crystal clear for Goodwin, and you could see him, speaking to the media. You could see that he was, speaking to the main group quite a lot, especially the second half of the year, and he was really preparing himself for, yes, of course, results for that year, but Simon Goodwin to take over the reins as the head coach the following year. I just don't seem to get that feel at all from the Essendon Footy Club, and I think the duopoly probably hasn't worked, which means missed messages, no question, for the players. Because I would have thought that Rutten would have been a lot more up front. with how he goes about football for 2020, and it doesn't seem that way. It's like it's coming into the year. Worsfold's sort of going, well, that's it for me, and Ruttons goes, oh, okay, it's me. And I think that's probably been a bit of a confusing message, perhaps for a good part of this season.
All right, where do you see Clarko and the Hawks? I mean, the coaches are always under fire. I don't think any coach in this COVID year is really under too much pressure. But Clarko, 15 years at the Hawks. I mean, 4 premierships says he's done an unbelievable job.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. I start hearing this little bit of vibe over here that time to move Clarko on. He's been there too long. I'm going, really? He's got your 4 premierships. You want to move him on? But the vibe's out there. Justifiable or not?
Not justifiable at all.
No.
He's brilliant at the Hawthorn foot. Absolutely brilliant. He's a brilliant coach. And I'm a bit like yourself, and we've spoken about it a lot this year. It's been a very difficult year, and I can't even comprehend how difficult it's been for a coach to babysit 30 to 40 players in a hub scenario now with wives and family and massaging all of that. And then, I think it's been, a fantastic, for every club, how they've handled it. And I know there's been a few hurdles hit along the way, as we know, but it's been a really tough year, and I think every club's done it beautifully. I really do. And there's certainly have to be, questions about different parts of the year, for Hawthorn or other clubs of probably the results that they should have got and they didn't get.
Yep.
And I think there's some underlying reasons behind it. And that's the difficult of 2020.
Well, we're going to have a chat about the Crows towards the end of the show, but I'm going to get to Port Adelaide right now. Of course, they had the win over Collingwood, 16-pointer, and we get the first final here in Adelaide Thursday
the
week.
Kitchen sink that Collingwood Footy Club threw at that poor old Port Adelaide, everything, absorbed it all and gave it all back.
150th year
Fantastic.
for Port Adelaide.
Yeah.
Minor premiership. Does it mean any more than any other year being the 150th year?
Well, look, I think Port Adelaide's done it magnificently. They've drilled it.
Yep.
They've drilled it into the supporters, the club, the administration, the players, and I was lucky enough to be part of the gala event. And
I was at that one. It was spectacular.
With the documentary they put out as well of the 100. They have done it so beautifully that this is 150 years, and we're not going to let anyone forget about it, especially not our supporters and our players, and they've just done it beautifully.
All right.
They've done it beautifully.
All right, mate, I've got one for you. I like to come out of left field for you, mate.
love
So
it.
batter up at the plate, mate. I want to see if you're going to hit this one away or where they're going to go. A lot of talk about the prison bars. Now, we know the players lift when they get the prison bars on. 40,000 people have signed a petition that should be able to play when they want to with the prison bars. Now, the AFL would fine Port Adelaide about $50,000 if they turned up and played in the prison bar.
Yeah.
Grand final day, Port Adelaide v Richmond. The players run out with the prison bars on. Now, A, would you do it?
Yeah.
B, I reckon the power are big enough and they've got enough backers that'll go, mate, I'll pay the $50,000.
I was going to say, if I had the money, I'd be checked right now.
Well, there you go. Or you go on the internet and you go to donate to the Port Adelaide Footy Club so we can wear the prison bars in the grand final. We're going to have 200,000 before the day's out. Would you do it?
Of course, you got to do it. You got to do it. I mean, we always go back to that first final.
Batter up your spigot, brother.
I'm saying wear it. I'm not saying wear it. That game against Richmond.
Would you do it now? The first home game against Geelong. Would you wheel it out or would you say, let's save it for the grand final?
I'd save it.
All right.
I'd save it. Two home games at Adelaide Oval. Let's save it and let's just bring it out. There's the 50. I just remember that game when we played Richmond. And they run out with those prison bars. And
the boys were fired up. And they said afterwards they get the lift on. They wear the jumper.
8 goals before Richmond even knew they were playing football.
Yep.
That's what it's all about.
Okay, I think it's something that they could probably consider, mate. So something for
I'll donate my $5, which I get for doing the bounce.
Just you're being overpaid there.
Rick, I am.
A couple of other quick ones for you. I want to ask you, the All-Australian team's going to get selected.
Yep.
Who's going to be the captain? Now, I reckon Travis Boakes had a year where he could be looked at for captain for the... You don't have to be captain of your own club to be captain. I reckon it's down to him. All right, there's another guy for Port Adelaide that's captain that's had a heck of a year, led his team to minor premiership.
Yeah,
so does Tommy get a look in as well?
Yeah.
Or is it Scott Pendlebury? I reckon it's out of those 3 for captain for All-Australian this year.
I'm with you. I think Travis Boakes will be captain. I think his year's been outstanding. And look, I don't know if he's going to win the Brownlow. Obviously he's in the top couple of the favourites. because he just does so much hard work. I don't think he gets praised enough by the umpires and because he's just. He's playing at times some ugly footy.
Yep.
He gets in there and gets the ball out, and I think because of the numbers around the ball nowadays, the umpires probably haven't got a chance to even know who got that ball out.
Yeah.
You know what? It's Travis Boak.
He's efficient. He's just not brilliant, is he? He's just efficient.
And that's what he is.
I want to ask you this one then quickly, because you're going to play Geelong. Tom Hawkins is Coleman medalist, 32 years of age. The last guy to do it at 32 years of age was Tony Lockett. So it's a long time between drinks at 32 years of age.
Yeah, how many goals did Tony Lockett kick that year?
I can't remember. I knew you'd asked me that.
Yeah,
but
probably kicked 100 and something. How many did?
Well, here's the 100 and something.
Yeah.
Malcolm Blight, who we're going to have a chat about later on in the show.
Woodville's changed so much.
Woodville West Torrens at 32 years kicked over 100 goals. So it's an interesting. I heard Lee Matthews talking during the week, and he was saying that he thinks the position of centre half forward no longer exists.
No, of course it does.
So he's saying, just when you're picking your all Australian teams, you're just picking 6 forwards, 6 midfielders, 6 back now. There's no centre half forward. There's really no true.
Port had 7 goal kickers out of 9.
There you go.
Yeah, out of 9. I mean, is there really a common medal anymore? I mean, there's very few clubs that have that special player that they can actually leave in that forward line 4 quarters of the game.
Right. Lockett kicks over 100. Hawkins does get half of that at the same stage. Just quickly before we go,
he's had a wonderful year. He's had a wonderful year.
And he's been
because you're up against about 6 players every time you go for a mark, so it's different,
He'll be a figurehead for him coming into the finals. The SANFL, of course, that's heating up. The finals not too far away. Last round about to start. Norwood got pantsed by South Adelaide on the weekend. Now, there's a few rumours floating around about the Redlegs, and I have a bias to the organisation, but I reckon they're solid. I'd be surprised, but
who's solid? South Adelaide's solid.
They play some great footy.
They're playing some great. They only just got beaten by the Eagles. They just run over just the last, and that was at Higginbotham Oval, I think it's called now. Flinders
Uni. Yep.
But it was a great game, except for that last sort of 10 minutes. So they're my roughy premiership team.
So who do you reckon it's out? The Eagles definitely caught up with Jay Cheedy today, and he's done a ripping job in his first year. He had 5 years at Athelston and got him into 3 grand finals there before he won. Got him from Divi 3 to Divi 1 too. Yeah. So he's done a really good job. So let's say it's the Eagles, South Adelaide, North Adelaide. That'd be the big 3. I know Glenelg are in there, last year's premiers, but
they're not playing the footy they played last year.
So do you reckon it's those 3 that's going to decide?
Yeah, I think it's those 3. I really think it's going to be South and Eagles who will play in the grand final. And I just think South played great last week, and the games that they have lost, they were in it every single time, except for they just got run over by just a bit classier outfit just in the last sort of 10 minutes of the game. And that was all. And when games are tough, you go to the end. It's a final.
We'll see what happens. All right. Well, we're in the first quarter, mate. We've got to take a break because we've got to get to the sponsors, mate. We've got to get across the Crows. We've got to get to No Show Without Ando. I can't wait to get to that one. And then, generally speaking, plenty to come. Stay with us.
And welcome back before the bounce. My favourite segment. There's no show without Ando.
Show without Ando.
And of course, you've got to thank Rachel Laurie from North Adelaide, Ray White, of course, and just a great supporter of all South Australian.
She has been a rip, hasn't she? I know we did a show
show
down there, but gee whiz, she's a fantastic supporter of sport South Australia. Rachel Laurie, Ray White, real estate.
Yeah.
Yep.
You said before the show, and at the start of the show, you look fresh and you look good. You got a bit of a pinkish hue going about yourself.
Go, mate. I'm feeling pretty good. Finals are coming. She's hotted up. Let's get going.
Okay, right. Here we go. It's a happy Festivus for the rest of us. I love it. Now, you're 4 games clear in a top position, 2 games to go.
Yep.
Your 2 best players approach you and say, no matter what happens, we won't be here next year. Oh, geez, you'd hate that. What I'm probably trying to ask is that, and you've been such a successful coach, that when it comes to finals, the gloves are off. And if you're not 100% committed, you know that there's someone there that might not have the same shine, but that 100% in a finals is what it's all about.
I can understand what you're saying. The game's changed. If you tried to do that in the 60s or 70s, you'd be jettisoned straight away. They're totally unacceptable. But we're in a different era now. Where players are, and you touched on it before, we're playing for survival. Now, to win a premiership, we know how difficult they are to win. So to hang that medal around your neck, regardless of whether you go and play at another club, you know that's what you're playing for.
Yeah.
Now, I reckon you've got a fairly good idea over the course of the year too, whether those two players are playing for the team or they're playing for themselves and they're trying to get somewhere else. So I reckon if you've picked that you think they're playing for themselves, I'd have a meeting with the playing group and say, we're 2 soldiers down.
Yeah.
We need to step up.
Yeah.
If you felt that they were with the group, players felt they were there, understood that they were moving on for whatever the reasons were, then it's fine.
Yeah.
You know, we saw it with rugby league. Rugby league sort of started it.
They started it,
All of a sudden,
yeah.
players could transfer during the season. And I reckon it was Wayne Bennett, the great Wayne Bennett, that said, well, mate, if you're not going to be here next year, then go.
Yeah.
And that caused a big stir. But now it's kind of acceptable. You know, we're seeing it. That's just the nature of the game now, where it's changed. We've become much more Americanised. We're accepting that players are transferable. They move in, move out. The loyalty thing's not as strong as it would be. So I reckon you'd just go, you know what? We're a couple of soldiers down. Let's let them go.
Yeah.
So,
And if that's the case, if we have Americanised the game, it's all about marketing.
yep.
Let's get back to prison bars.
There we go.
Let's sell the new goons. Let's sell the new goons.
Do you know that? While you're talking about the prison bars, because you've jumped back onto it, it has been the #1 selling jumper this year in the AFL. So it's outsold Richmond, it's outsold Essendon, it's outsold West Coast. It is the #1 jumper that is sold around Australia.
Is it good
this
to
year.
cry on air? You just want to tear them on, but you're really it's beautiful.
All right, mate, let's get to a break. We're into the second quarter, about to head into the third, and game of the state coming up.
Air Diffusion Agencies are the market leader in air conditioning component manufacturing. Using state-of-the-art technologies to design and innovate, they have the largest range of components for all air conditioning, heating and ventilation systems. Air Diffusion are proudly Australian family-owned, trading for over 30 years and employing over 150 experienced staff. Servicing all of Adelaide with 3 huge locations, they really are your one-stop air conditioning trade centre. So demand Air Diffusion products in your home or business.
Welcome back to Before the Bounce. Time to get to Game of the State. This one brought to us by Air Diffusion Agencies. They're your one-stop shop, mate. They've got trading. They've got branches everywhere. Welland, Salisbury, Longdale in South Australia. They're in Queensland, Darwin. And, of course, we know Big Billy runs the show.
He loves the Southern League and, of course, the grand final, Flagstaff Hill versus the Shoes, the Noarlunga Shoes. So
it's a pretty interesting one, isn't it? Because most people thought it was going to be Christie's Beach and Flagstaff Hill. But it's,
I couldn't believe that they got rolled by Noarlunga.
Yeah.
Christie's Beach were dominating all year. So it's funny about finals, isn't it?
It's a funny thing, mate. And this is an interesting one too, because Flaggies are going for 5 in a row, which would be equal the record of the Southern Footy League. But of course, last year Noarlunga sat on top of the ladder, and Flaggies got them in the grand final. Now we've had Flaggies sitting on top of the ladder with Noarlunga coming after them.
Noarlunga play a really good finals style of football. They're ruthless, they're tough, they don't want you to score goals. So, you know, I think that sort of style could really benefit this week in the grand final, because Flagstaff Hill love the free-flowing game.
Yep.
And I think it all got caught off guard last year, and I reckon that it could be an upset. I really do. I love Noarlunga, how they play finals footy, and I played against them when I coached at Hallett Cove, and it's just always hard to score goals against them.
Yep.
And it could suit their style.
Might suit their style. Of course,
and it's winning the foot.
They're out at Flinders Uni Oval, mate. Saturday, it'll be an absolute belter of a game, mate. So
it'll be fantastic.
Close to a sellout too. It's been dangerously close to a sellout there. So, gee, I think it'll be interesting, mate. I just think it'll be interesting. Yeah. What else have we got for us, mate? What's happening here, mate?
Well, we've got the. I was going to say just a bit of a
side issue. Yes.
Div 3. I know we'll get to Div 1 shortly.
Div 3.
Div 3. We've got the Golden Grove versus Flinders Park at Norwood Oval for the grand final this week as well, which. My stepson's playing in, which is fantastic for Flinders Park. So I wish them the
Flinders Park.
best.
Yeah, jumped on the Flinders Park, have you, mate? No,
he's played there since under 14, so it's great that they get into the grand final, which is fantastic. And of course, we've got St Peter's playing Ross Trevors in the prelim. Which is quite good. And your side, PAC, which you backed early in the year, and that's why I wanted to bring it up.
That's why we brought it up.
Got beaten out last week, and they're doing their Mad Monday the other day, and Goody Saints, which I thought no one in the world does straight in the grand final.
Yeah. They're a big club, the Goody Saints, mate.
It's so powerful.
One of the fellas that played for the Sixers, Matty Ullman, was a super player down there for the Goody Saints, so they were a team I adopted.
Just keep doing it up.
He was playing.
They started the year terribly.
And then
they just come good and straight into the grand final.
Mate, before we get to the break, we should say too, congratulations, of course, to the Flagstaff women who won the grand final over Ranella. Mate, it was nearly goal. Well, it was goalless in the first half, and then 3 quick goals to Flaggies. Start of the third quarter, got the girls to win, so they were pretty happy with that, mate. We need to get to a break. We'll be back in a minute. Lots to talk about. Yes, welcome back to Before the Bounce. Of course, mate, you've had no show without Ando. Time to get to Generally Speaking. So I get my segment, mate, in a league of their own.
Love it.
No doubt about this bloke, Malcolm Blight. I just say the word and everybody goes. So just before I get to Blighty's record, we talk about the biggest name in footy in South Australia. Is it the King, Neil Curley? Is it Malcolm Blight? Or is it Barry Robran? Russell Ebert. They're kind of the 4 big names, although you know how I feel about Johnny Platten.
Yeah,
I reckon Platts has got to get a bit. I'll leave Platts out for a minute, and I'll leave Russell and Barry Robran out.
You know what?
Is it Blight or is it Curley?
I nearly go Curls.
Yep.
Because of what he had against Teddy Whitten.
Yep.
And we,
not that great rivalry.
We're going back to State of Origin. I'm probably saying in my era, Malcolm Blight, I mean, the best player. And what a wonderful coach. But when Knuckles took it to another degree.
Yep.
You know, what he done for state footy, to putting South Australia on the map, you know, we're the biggest state for football in Australia. That's what Neil Curley sold the football world.
Yep.
That we were the best in Australia. And, sometimes he had to eat his words. Sometimes he made Ted Whitten walk down Rundle Mall with the state Guernsey on after a Tuesday, State of Origin game. So he just done a few little quirky things that we loved, and he really did, I think, brought our game really into that next level, and he made Victoria really stand up and take shape of how good we are here in South Australia.
Well, mate, I'm doing a documentary on Neil Curley, so I've spent the last 2 months getting a lot of information, and he's done some things, and we'll talk about them over the journey that will amaze you in how innovative he was. I'll just give you one of them before we go to Blighty. He was the first coach. He actually gave the runner a walkie-talkie to run out onto the ground to give one of the players so he could talk to him during the game. And then he kept that going until the SNFL said, you can't do it anymore. That's just one. So I'll give you one more. He was the first coach to elevate the coaching.
That's right. And that was down at Theranova?
Correct.
Good.
Yep. So we talk about innovation. He was up there. It's interesting that him and Blighty both innovating creatures. Anyway, let's talk about Blighty, mate. 178 games for North Melbourne, 164 games for Woodville, 342 games in total, 803 goals. 1972 Magarey medal, 1978 Brownlow medal, 1982 he's the Coleman medalist. He won North Melbourne's goal kicking 4 times, if you don't mind. 1985 the Farmer medalist with 126 goals at age 35. 2 premierships, of course, with the Adelaide Crows, 3 grand finals with Geelong, Australian Footy Hall of Fame 1996, and the South Australian Football Hall of Fame in 2002. He's an unbelievable, just amazing.
It says it all, but he's covered so many generations as well. I mean, you look at what he done for the Crows when he coached them to 2 flags. So the kids who were 14, 15, just saying, Malcolm Blight, you're my hero. And then he kicks that goal when he's playing for North Melbourne, and those kids all back in those late 70s are saying,
how far was that goal kicked from, mate?
Because it's just amazing.
The first time it was 60 metres, then it got to 70. There's some talk that he kicked it from the grandstand at the opposite end.
What I'm thinking, look, we talk about Robbie Gray and some great goals. Stephen Kernan after the siren, and you go back and you get the angle right and you get the spin right. He's kicked a torpedo.
Yes.
Now, how many times, honestly, does that come off? That comes okay off your boot.
Got to have some courage to do it.
So he's done that.
He'd missed the goal before from there, hadn't he?
He did too.
Yes.
No, that was close. He kicked in between the goal and the point post.
Okay.
Because all the posts were white.
Yep.
Yeah. In South Australia, we had red point post.
That's
anyway.
Right. Yep.
But he's 90 out. That's what he told me the other week. He's 90 out now. But he had the courage to kick a torpy.
Yep.
So
got to back yourself in for that.
The drop punt, all the great goals have been, after sirens. He's gone the torpy, and wow,
he has cleared it by a fair bit.
And he's just kicked footage.
All right, I want to ask you about the Crows because we said we'd have a chat about them. So they won 3 out of their last 4 games. So I just want to go through who they beat so we can go, okay, how do we assess that? So they defeated Hawthorn by
30 odd points.
35
Yeah,
points.
nice.
35. Hawthorn at that stage, well, Hawthorn now placed 15th. They beat GWS by 12 points. GWS finished 10th this year. Then they got Carlton by 16 points. And of course, Carlton finished 11th. They lost to Richmond in their last game.
Yeah.
By 44 points. So what do we take from those 3 wins? Now, again,
I think it goes back before then.
Hawthorn, GWS, I don't quite rate Carlton as well as them, just based on records.
Yeah.
But I think GWS were a pretty decent team this year.
Yeah.
I reckon Hawthorn, I know they struggled, but
They scrap and they made you earn your win.
so do we look at it and say Nixie's game plan started to take shape against 3 teams? Again, I know that
I saw it a couple of weeks before that. I thought they played really well against Geelong.
and the week before that, they started to get closer to
They
teams.
should have beaten Essendon.
Yep.
They just ran out of puff. And what we actually started to see is probably 4 or 5 younger players, McAdam being one of them, all of a sudden have 10, 12 games under his belt, getting a little bit of confidence and playing the game out.
Yep.
That was a big difference. They probably had those 4 or 5 players that, I suppose Nixie had the luxury of saying, you know what, let's just keep playing these young kids.
Yes.
And they delivered for him. They delivered him for the last probably 6 or 7 weeks. And I was just a bit disappointed with the second half against Richmond. I thought they let it blow out a little bit.
Yep.
I thought that I thought a 20-point loss was what the Adelaide Footy Club probably deserved for for that 5 or 6 weeks prior to that.
Enough positives coming in.
There was a lot of
Still
positives.
lot of work to do.
And I still say exactly, I tell people what you said so many times. Ken Hinckley was like the father when this COVID hit.
Yep.
And he just rallied them. They went to him for guidance and what's going on. Nixie comes in brand new. And, so this world tragedy, and he's got a father figure, players he doesn't know, they don't know him. And I think it would have been difficult for all coaches in the in different aspects of how long you've been at that club and how well the players know you to actually perhaps confide in you in this difficult time.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because if you stay on that theory, Scott, Fagan,
Hardwick.
Yeah. 3 of the clubs that are the 3 that they kind of and Hinckley. They're the 4 clubs that everyone's talking about with the 4 wise men.
I would look at 2 I would go to.
Yep.
Is
Fagan.
Fagan.
Yep.
And Ken Hinckley.
Yeah.
And they're first and
So
second.
it's interesting, isn't it?
And it's first and second.
Yeah.
And I reckon this year I wouldn't have backed. I reckon I backed against Brisbane probably 10 times, and they just keep winning.
Fags is good.
so it seems-
All right.
yeah.
Crows have made some change. Of course, Benny Hart's gone. Mickey Godden's gone. Brent Riley's been told he won't be an assistant coach, but they had a huge signing. Scotty Burns is coming to town as the senior assistant now. Spent time at West Coast. He spent time at Collingwood, and of course he's been at Hawthorn the last 3 years. An absolutely outstanding coach and a ripping recruit for the Crows. So they've already looking like we're heading in the right direction.
Gives them that real good maturity.
Yep.
He's coached. He's been in that coach's box for a long time now. But only that, he's a tough guy. He's a tough guy. He's not there to win friendships. He's there to make sure that you abide by Nixie's rules.
Yep.
And you win.
All right, Scotty Burns is a stone throw away from becoming a head coach. Of course, Rob Chapman, of course, passes the baton on as president. So it's been an interesting.
Are you taking that? Are you going to be chairman next year?
I don't reckon that's my go. Yeah, on that note, we'll close because that's clearly not my position as chairman and president of Footy Club. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the show and a terrific catching up with you, mate. Look forward to your company next week.
See you
Bye,
next
everybody.
week.
It's a high chaos ball, a wobbler. Oh, Reynolds favoured by the bounce. He's going to turn it round the body, and he's got enough on it.